Yo, what up, world? It's your boy C's from thec'slife.com. Yo, check this out, man. I was just finished uploading my video, watching my video, and the YouTube algorithm strike again. So as soon as I finish watching my video, this video pops up. This video is Ray Dalio explaining the changing world order. I highly recommend that you give this 45 minutes of your undivided attention. I'm going to link the whole entire video down in the description, but I wanted to pick up the video here where it's the decline, right? And react with you guys. Also, the fact that the more you watch something, you pick up things. So maybe me just watching and racing through it, trying to get through the video so I can make this reaction video, I missed something. But this part right here is what we're currently living through. So we are currently living through this decline. So if you're a retail investor, if you're looking to build financial freedom, if you're looking to understand the economy and why it go bust, this is a perfect part of the video. Also, in that video that I'm linking to, there's different chapters, so you can always revisit if you missed something, right? So without any further ado, our unofficial correspondent, Ray Dalio, take it away. All right, let's play that.
Decline comes from internal economic weakness together with internal fighting or costly external fighting, or both. Typically, the decline comes gradually and then very suddenly. When debts become very large and there is an economic downturn and the empire can no longer borrow the money necessary to repay its debts, the financial bubble bursts. This creates great domestic hardships and forces the country to choose between defaulting on its debts or printing a lot of new money. It always chooses to print a lot of new money. At first gradually and eventually massively. That devalues the currency and raises inflation. For the Dutch, this was the financial crisis brought about by financial excesses and paying for the fourth.
And watching the video, this like put things in so much perspective, because the United States have done this several times over and over again. Not just the United States, but civilizations in the as old as time just do this whole cycle all over again. They detach from the dollar, from the gold standard, then they go back. So everybody's rushing to gold, right? So maybe, you know what I mean? AMC looking to get ahead of the curve and buy the gold so that when we do end up going to the gold standard and is backed by crypto or whatever, we're all prepared for it. But let's continue.
Anglo-Dutch War. Similarly, for the British, it was paying for its financial excesses and its debts from the two world wars. And for the U.S., it's been 3 cycles of debt finance booms and busts since the 90s, with the central bank stepping in each time with stronger measures. When the government has problems funding itself, when there are bad economic conditions, and living standards for most people are declining, and there are large wealth, values, and political gaps, internal conflict between the rich and the poor, as well as different ethnic, religious, and racial groups, greatly increases. This leads to political extremism that shows up as populism of the left or the right. Those of the left seek to redistribute the wealth, while those of the right seek to maintain the wealth in the hands of the rich. Typically, during such times, taxes on the rich rise, and when the rich fear their wealth and well-being will be taken away, they move to places, assets, and currencies they feel safer in. These outflows reduce the empire's tax revenue, which leads to a classic, self-reinforcing, hollowing out process. When the flight of wealth gets bad enough, governments outlaw it. Those seeking to get out begin to panic. These turbulent conditions undermine productivity, which shrinks the economic pie and causes more conflict about how to divide the shrinking resources. Populist leaders emerge from both sides and pledge to take control and bring about order. That's when democracy is most challenged because it fails to control the anarchy. And it is when the move to a strong populist leader who will bring order to the chaos is most likely.
Donald
As
Trump.
conflict within the country escalates, it leads to some form of revolution or civil war to redistribute wealth and force the necessary big changes. This can be peaceful and maintain the existing order, but it's more often violent and changes the order. For example, the Roosevelt Revolution to redistribute wealth was relatively peaceful and maintained the existing internal order, while the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, and the Chinese Revolution were much more violent and led to new internal orders. This internal conflict makes the empire weak and vulnerable to rising external rivals who, seeing this domestic weakness, are more inclined to mount a challenge. This raises the risk of great international conflict, especially if the rival has built up a comparable military. Defending oneself and one's empire against rivals requires great military spending, which has to occur as domestic economic conditions are deteriorating and the empire can least afford it. Since there is no viable system for peacefully adjudicating international disputes, these conflicts are typically resolved through tests of power. As bolder challenges are made, the leading empire is faced with the difficult choice of fighting or retreating. Fighting and losing is the worst outcome, but retreating is bad too, as it cedes progress to the rival and signals that the empire is weak to those countries that are considering which side to be on. Poor economic conditions cause more fighting for wealth and power, which inevitably leads to some kind of war. Wars are terribly costly. At the same time, they produce the tectonic shifts that realign the new waters to the new realities of wealth and power in the world. When those holding the reserve currency and debt of the declining empire lose faith and sell them, that marks the end of its big cycle. Of the roughly 750 currencies that existed since 1700, less than 20% now exist, and all of them have been devalued. For the Dutch, this happened after their defeat in the Fourth Anglo-Dutch War, when they weren't able to repay the massive debts they built up during it. This led to a run on the Bank of Amsterdam and a desperate sell-off, forcing massive money printing, which devalued
What
the
would the
currency
United States do this time?
and the empire into irrelevance. For the British, this happened after World War II, when despite their victory, they could not repay the massive debts they borrowed to fund their war effort. This led to a series of money printing, devaluations, and sell-offs in the British pound as the US and the dollar emerged dominant and created a new world order. At the time of this recording, the United States hasn't yet reached this point. While it has massive debt, spends more than it earns, and funds this deficit with more borrowing and printing huge amounts of new money, the big sell-off in dollars and dollar debt hasn't yet begun. And while there are great internal and external conflicts occurring for all the classic reasons, they've not yet crossed the line to become wars. Eventually, out of these conflicts, whether they're violent or not, come new winners who get together and restructure the losers' debts and political systems and establish the new world order. Then the old cycle and empire ends and the new one begins, and they do it all over again. That's a lot of detail I just threw at you to paint a picture of how the typical big cycle transpires. Of course, not all of them transpire in exactly this way, but most largely do. So much so that it seems like the stories of rises and declines stay essentially the same, and the only things that change are the clothes the characters wear and the technologies they use. So, where are we heading?
All right, so we're just gonna stop that there. I again implore you to visit the link in the description so that you can watch the video in its entirety. Like, save it, because this is a priceless gem. The production, the slowness of his speech, where he's able to articulate it very clearly what we're going through, and gives us a bit of some solutions. But for all of us who are in the AMC play, GME play, Sundial, all the other stocks, we understand that this is coming. You know, they're trying to prop this up the best they can, buying time. You know what I mean? Hold on. They're just buying time in order to delay the inevitable, you know? So there's going to be a point where there's going to have to be a distribution of wealth in order for the system to survive. What they're trying to do is hold on to their wealth while denying the inevitable. Like, they can live to fight another day if they just bite the bullet and do what needs to be done, you know, and that's to end this whole saga, basically. But they're delaying the inevitable. It's only a matter of time. This is nature. This is the way that nature cleanses itself. It's basically organic self-cleansing. Like, when the environment gets too toxic and it stunts growth, these drastic things have to happen. That's why there's always going to be a financial crisis. There's always going to be a housing bubble. But those who are aware and attuned to where we are in the cycle, we can take advantage of that, right? We understand that we can buy assets on the low, on the cheap, and then when the new cycle of prosperity begins, we can flourish. You know what I'm saying? So it all starts with these little seeds here, man, and we're just going to continue to add and build onto it, man. So again, link is in the description. Go check out the whole video. Hopefully that helps and that gives you a little bit of insight of what we're going through, man. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I'll holler on the next one. Peace.